Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today, we are dealing with summary writing. My name is Steven Sim, and so let's put on our thinking caps. Maybe not. Let's see what happens. Okay, so you have your handouts with you, so take a look at your handouts. Okay, so we have 2 hours in which I will share with you and you will do your best to pay attention and to learn some tips, okay? Some helpful tips that will improve your summary writing. And summary writing is very important because carries quite a lot of weightage, 15 marks for that 25 mark paper. And for most students, if you do well for summary writing, it's the decider, it's make or break. It determines whether or not you get your top band or whether for some students whether they actually manage to pass. So uh, tonight we deal with a tricky issue, and the tricky issue is actually what do you actually do when you have summary writing, right? What do you actually do with summary writing? Because you might have heard your teachers telling you that, when you summarize in order to score, you must paraphrase more. I'm sure your teachers in school have told you that, correct? So summary writing, paraphrase more, and then you get more marks. That is not wrong. That is one way of doing things. Because what I want to tell you tonight is that summary is about reducing the word count. Sometimes I tell students that summary is about reducing word counts, and then they say summary is about paraphrasing more. So there's this thing where you have to switch tracks. You have to switch tracks in your mind. You need to switch between two ways of thinking. So it's as if you have one way of thinking and then you have another way of thinking. So which track do you want to use? For example, let's say if you are talking about your comprehension paper, okay, if you talk about your actual comprehension, I would say that for your compre, it's very dangerous to lift. Even if they don't have this restricting clause which says uh, answer in your own words. So sometimes you don't see that clause there, then you say, hey, I can lift. But the danger is that when you lift, it doesn't answer the question and then you get 0 marks. So the guideline is that for compre questions, don't lift. Okay, so for your normal compre questions, don't lift. And then when it comes to your summary, I tell students to switch tracks. Remember switch tracks? So you're thinking one way and then now you think the other way. So you switch tracks. So for your summary, I know it's part of your compre, but think of summary as being a special kind of creature in itself. For your summary, depending on your abilities, okay, depending on your abilities for your summary, if you are currently scoring something like 2 or 3 out of 15, then what you should do is you should lift as much as possible. Because what you want to do is you want to score 8 out of 8 for content. If you manage to score 8 out of 8 for content, and then for your language and style, how you express your ideas, you get something to 3 or 4 marks out of 7, they will give you 11 or 12 out of 15, which is a pretty respectable score. Compare that with what you are getting now. So if you are scoring something like 2 to 3 marks currently, your strategy must be to lift and make sure that you get your 8 content points, because summary is about reducing word count. So this is track number 1, like a railroad track. Do you understand? So this is track 1. Now, if you have been scoring 11 or 12 consistently meaning for 3 summary exercises in a row, you get 12 upon 15, the next one you get 11 upon 15, and then the next exercise again, you get 12 upon 15, and you can see that you're scoring 8 upon 8, and you're losing the marks which you're not scoring. It's because of these last few marks here, correct? Okay, then the advice which you received from your teacher makes sense, because the last few marks, what you want to do, and those last few marks are actually very difficult to do, then you paraphrase. But you need to paraphrase successfully, which means you need to demonstrate your mastery of vocabulary, grammar, and transformations. So that's one of the things which we will deal with today. So there are actually 2 ways of dealing with this. This is track 2. If you are already scoring 12 or 11 upon 15 consistently, then you paraphrase more. Do you understand? But what about, it's like this reminds me of this story about this young boy, this teenager who was very upset because his parents, this kung fu show. So his parents got murdered by some bandits and robbers, and then he wanted to take revenge. So he went up to the Shaolin temple, and then he said, "Oh, please teach me kung fu." And then the monk said, "Oh, please forgive." And he said, "No, I must learn kung fu." And the monk said, "Okay, how can we help you?" So he said, "I want to learn the ultimate form of Kung Fu." So the monk says, "Okay." So you go over to that room. They're all practicing the ultimate form of Kung Fu. So he goes in there and he sees a room full of monks, and they're all closing their eyes and meditating. So that's the ultimate form of Kung Fu. I say, okay, release. Forget about it. Don't take revenge. But so what do you need to do? If you are a beginner, if you're at the starting stage, then you must adopt the technique which is suitable for you. And I don't know, because this is a webinar, right? So many of you here, I don't know where you are at, but you know, because you look at your own marks. So you need to track your own marks, and you need to see, where are you? Are you losing marks for content? Are you scoring something like 1 upon 8 or 2 upon 8 for content? If you are, then you need to lift. You understand? Until you can get 8 upon 8 consistently. Then we talk about the advanced techniques. Do you understand? So you don't jump to the advanced techniques and you say that, oh, if I learn the advanced techniques, I'll be good. It doesn't work that way. You need to master bodybuilding. You need to master the basics of Kung Fu. You need to master the basics of summary writing first, extracting the ideas, selecting the ideas. And these are some of the things which we will be dealing with today. So right from the very start, I want to tell you that there are actually 2 ways of doing things. You either lift or you paraphrase. Ideally, you can do both. Ideally, everybody gets full marks. That's the ideal world. IDEAL. But we live in the real world. And in the real world, you need to be truthful with yourself and ask yourself, where am I at currently? What are my skill levels currently? Okay, so let me focus on the basics first, and then we can talk about the advanced techniques. And tonight, I'll cover the whole range. Okay, so I'll cover the whole range of techniques tonight, and then you can select, and you can rewatch this video. It's on YouTube, and so you can rewatch, and when you get to that stage, then you can apply. Okay, so what do we do when it comes to our summary writing. Okay, so I've distilled it. I've tried to make it very simple. You just have something called slim T. Okay, so slim T, SLIM, and then there's a T, S slim T. So that helps you to remember what do we do for summary. So slim, as first we have to decide what you are looking for. You need to know what you're looking for. And this is the very first stage. You ask yourself, do you do this? Do I do these things? And I will tell you with quite a high degree of confidence that 90% of you don't do this. 90% of you do not underline the keywords in the questions. And I know because I walk around when I in class and I look at you doing the summary, I know that you don't do this. And I also know because I look at your worksheets after you submit it for marking and I see that you don't do this. But this is what you need to do. So many students say, these are very basic. I don't want to do. So I only want to do advanced techniques. I don't want to do basic techniques. But the advanced techniques are built on the basics, right? So if you don't underline the keyword, then you don't know what you're looking for, then you end up answering the wrong thing, and then you don't get marks. So fundamentally, when it comes to learning, learning is not easy because learning means you need to admit to yourself that you're not good enough in certain things. And you also need to admit to yourself that you need to change and you need to make yourself want to change. So these are not easy things to do. These are emotional things where you need to change and you need to emotionally accept it. And then you change and then it becomes better. So you need to underline the keywords and then you need to hold that idea inside your head. And in fact, when I do summaries, I refer to the question quite often. I'll look at the question, then I look at the passage, then I look back at the question, then I look at the passage again. Because I'm very afraid that I lose track of what the question is and that I answer wrongly. Because I know that if I answer wrongly, I'm actually wasting my time, I'm wasting my effort. So I want to make sure that I have to keep that question somewhere at the back of my mind all the time. Okay, so that scope, like a telescope, like a telescope. So you need to check what is it that you are looking for. Okay, and you need to keep that in your mind. Underline the keywords in the question. This is a mechanical thing that you do. Just do it. You just use a highlighter. And for some of you say, I don't have highlighters. Then just use your pen. Underline. You say, underline, circle. Up to you. Draw a box. Up to you. Do something. Okay. Process the information. This is the step one. If you don't even do this step, then the simple steps I don't want to do. I want to do the complicated step. Just do the simple step first, and then it builds up. We end up with the complex strategies later. Okay. You can always use a highlighter on your question paper. Don't highlight your answers. Highlight your question paper. Because you don't hand up your question paper. You understand? So you are not allowed to use highlighters and correction tapes for your answers. But of course, you can highlight your paper. Don't be afraid of making your paper look like what I have on screen here. Circles, diagrams, underlining, because this paper is yours and it's there for you to do your working. So you need to record down what your mind is thinking and what your mind is processing. So when you look at this and it's there on the piece of paper, it's something which you have processed. It's a record and it helps your mind to stay focused. The next thing you want to do is the L, slim T. So locate which paragraph. So you read each paragraph and then you decide this paragraph is relevant, this paragraph is not relevant. So for example, let's say if you have a question like this, okay? So this is page 6. So let's say you have a question like this. This is, we're not doing the actual summary. I just want to show you what this technique means. Okay, so the passage looks something like this. Okay, and then this is the question, right? Okay, so what would we highlight or underline? So we would highlight, what do you think? Beneficial, right? So beneficial, what does that mean? Oh, positive effects of growing older. So I'm only looking for the beneficial effects. Maybe that paragraph has negative effects as well. Then because I am scoping it, so I know that I don't include anything that is negative. That's not within the scope of the question. Do you understand? But sometimes the question is the other way. They want to know the benefits and the drawbacks, in which case then your scope must include both. So reading the question is very important because I have many students who don't actually read the question. What they do is that in their minds, and then you ask yourself whether this is true. In their minds, when they look at the question, they go something like, and then, oh, okay, this is how I begin. This is what I pay attention to. Ask yourself whether you do this. If you do this, it's actually very dangerous. Okay? And I know that there are students who do this. Because I've talked to some of you before, and you tell me that you don't actually read the question. So you need to read the question, discover the scope. The second thing which we have here, we said locate. So locate the paragraphs. So read each paragraph and mark it and skip irrelevant paragraphs. So we want to locate. So it says here, paragraphs 10 to 15. So I need to underline this. And then it says 10 to 15. Oh, that means that I draw a line and then I draw an arrow. I say, okay, from here onwards, all the way until paragraph 15. Okay, so until the end. Okay, no problem. Okay, so I will only use information from this paragraph because I've seen students, they include information from paragraph 9. And if you include information from paragraph 9, it answers the question, do you get any marks? No, no marks, even if it answers the question. Do you understand? So please do this thing, okay? So I also seldom see students doing this. All it takes is for you to draw a line. And then after I have some students saying, am I allowed to draw a line? Yeah, of course you are. And you can draw a very neat line. Use a ruler. Say, Mr. Sim, your line is so ugly. Okay, then you draw a nicer line. Use a ruler. Okay, draw a very neat line because it's your paper. Okay, so this is to help you remain focused. And again, you want to do these things that make it easy for you because thinking is hard. So all the things which can be made easier, then that's the thing which you need to do. Okay, so we have located, we say, okay, from 10, paragraph 10 to 15, like that. Okay, so that's the next thing that you need to do mechanically. So scope, locate, and then you need to identify. Slim T, I for identify. So you need to list the ideas. So which are the ideas that answer the question? Make sure that they answer the question. Then what do you ignore? You ignore examples, you ignore statistics, you ignore minor details. Okay, so how do I go about doing this? Well, if it's the worksheets that you get from MindStretcher, you find that we make it easy for you because we provide you with this table, right? You know that during your exam, you don't have a table. This is your table for your working. You understand? So this is a table for your working. During the actual exam, you don't get this table. Then what do you do? Because here is easy. This is lifted. This is the shorter version. This is lifted. This is the shorter version. So during your exam, what you need to do is you need to look from paragraph 10 to 15, and you need to do this beneficial effects. Okay, paragraph 10. Let's look at this. Far from being fixed in childhood, seems our personalities are fluid and malleable. People become nicer and more socially adapted. Sounds beneficial to me, right? Better able. Oh, okay, I think this is the one. Okay, so don't underline, because if you just underline everything like this, oh, then everything is underlined. Then it becomes a total mess. I've seen students who do their underlining that like this. Don't do this. It's a mess. It's horrible. It's useless. You understand? So don't make that mistake. What you want to do is you want to be very precise. It's as if you are cutting and pasting. You're just cutting using a pair of scissors. So what you do is you use square brackets. Okay, so you go, people, you start here, become nicer and more socially adapted and better able to balance their own expectations of life with societal demand. Then you think, is this beneficial effect of growing? Yes. Is it 2 points or 1 point? It's actually 1 point, because nicer means other people find you nicer, correct? And then socially adapted, meaning being able to get along with others in society, balance their own expectations with society. Again, is one idea, is yourself in relation to others. So this is one idea. Then, okay, I have found the first point. So I put down here, there. This is point number 1. Like that. So you use square brackets, very precisely say this is where it starts, this is where it ends. And then it doesn't mess up your paper. You can still read clearly. Secondly, okay, what's the second point? Process of change, personality maturation, gradual, imperceptible change, intriguingly seems to be universal. I don't seem to have much information here that answers the question. What's the question? Okay, then I look at the question again. Beneficial effects of growing older. Okay, so go back to the question, check again. Does it actually? No, I don't see beneficial effects. This is just the label, right? There's no actual benefit here. Look at this. How about paragraph 12? Score highly for conscientiousness, friendliness, and openness. Okay, so Japanese centenarians. So don't be afraid if the word is very difficult to pronounce. It doesn't matter, because it's not an oral exam. So it's just Japanese something has found that they tend to score highly for this, this, and this. Okay, so friendliness seems like a repetition of this. Conscientiousness is a different idea. Openness is a different idea. So I think that I might have a second idea here, or maybe a third idea, but I might need to unpack it. Okay, so like this. So I have one idea, two ideas, and then you continue this process of bracketing and numbering. So you need to number, because what you're searching for are 8 points or 10 points. So you want to number. Why do I say 8 points or 10 points? And that's because sometimes when students number their points, you might think that you have managed to get 8. But actually, your 0.7 and your 0.8 might actually just be one idea, and which means that you end up missing the final point. So to play safe, for your exam, you want to identify 10. I know that the content points are 8 upon 8, 1 point for each, 1 mark for each point. How about that? 1 mark for each point, 1 mark per point. So if you can identify 10, and you say, maybe I know it's 10, but if I really look very carefully and if I really think about it, which is actually the most important part, you need to think about it. If you really think about it, oh, it's actually just 8 and maybe and a half, or maybe just 8 points. But what you should do mechanically is to identify 10, and then you will realize that maybe points 9 and 10 are somewhat the same, and maybe points 5 and 6 are somewhat the same. So you actually end up with just 8. But what you don't want to do is to just go, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, finish. And then you just ignore the rest. You don't want to have that. Do you understand? You don't just want to scan and get 8 and then be happy and just, oh, say, I don't need to read anymore, and then just leave the last paragraph alone. So that's what we are fighting against. We are fighting against this tendency that we have. You have it, I have it. This tendency, the tendency that we have to just do the least possible, to use as little effort as possible. And so once I have 8, I don't think about it anymore. I just hand up. Don't do that. You understand? So you need to be conscientious. Conscientious. Conscientiousness means being very hardworking. Being very hardworking. So to be very conscientious. And so I have located 8 points, but I'm going to continue reading. And then, hey, that idea is also applicable. 9 point. And hey, that idea is maybe not applicable. So now I go backwards. Say, hey, maybe 5th and 6th point, maybe number 6 was actually an example. Oh, so then you reconsider. So that is the kind of work that goes into planning a summary. It is not straightforward. I look at one line and then I paraphrase it. Then I look at the next line randomly, my eyes skipping up and down because my paper is totally clean. My eyes skips up and down, and then I write. And then after that, I think about it, and I'm dreaming halfway, and then I look at it again, and then again I say, maybe it's that. And then you end up repeating yourself, or you end up writing down the example. You don't want to do that. You want to be very conscientious. You want to put in a lot of effort when it comes to examining the text. There's a lot of hard work involved for summary writing. I'm uh, I'm sorry to say that, but there's no way around it. Secondary school English is tough. It requires lots of effort on your part. You cannot afford to go in for your exam feeling tired, feeling sleepy because you were up in your bed at night, 2 a.m., scrolling away on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is. Do you understand? You need to be fresh. You need to apply your thinking very clearly. You need to use whatever techniques you have to give yourself an advantage. And again, I repeat myself, one of the best techniques you can do is actually to use your pen and to write down your thoughts on paper, to mark out certain things, use square brackets, underline, circle, help yourself to keep track of your prior thinking. So this, if you look at this page now, this is what I have processed so far. So when I look at it, I can remember, I said, these are the things that I've processed so far. What should I talk about next? Oh, I should be talking about this next. It's very easy for me when I do these things on a paper. It's very easy for me to continue my thoughts. And when I look at what I wrote previously, it's very easy for me to remember that I use the metaphor of a telescope in order to talk about limiting or looking at only certain ideas. So there's scope. So make use of these techniques to help yourself to process the text, because summary writing requires a lot of processing of ideas, a lot of words. So there are lots of words on the text, and you need to squeeze the juice out of it. It's not just about paraphrasing mechanically. I don't care what the text means, I'll just change the words. And then you hope to score. You will not score if you do that. You actually need to have an in-depth understanding of the ideas that are being discussed. And then you need to reduce the number of words and express it in grammatical English. That's what they are asking. That's the test. And this is very difficult. The Cambridge examiners have said time and again that the summary writing task is the most difficult task. It's more difficult than situational writing. It's more difficult than essay writing. More difficult than essay writing. Because in essay writing, it's just you expressing your ideas. Do you understand? You just write 350 words, 400 words. You go ahead and write what you want. But in your summary writing, you cannot do creative writing. You cannot just say, I want to say whatever I want to say. It's very strictly controlled. You need to be very precise. And that is the ultimate test because they are testing your ability to understand what you read, which means that you need to build up your vocab. If you don't build up your vocabulary, then you won't understand what you are reading, in which case you can't re-express it. You need to build up your vocab. Okay, one way to overcome this is, of course, to lift. If you lift, you say, I know that somewhere in there the idea is correct. If you lift, you can get 8 upon 8 for content. You will lose marks for style and language, but there's no other way unless you improve your vocab. So that's something which you must do. You need to have good grammar because if you don't have good grammar, when you transform the sentence, it won't make sense. It won't be an English sentence. And we'll see some examples of that. So you need to understand what you're reading, and then you need to have good vocab, and you need to have good grammar, and you need to put all of these things down within 80 words. And so that's why summary writing is the most difficult test in your entire English language exam. And if I want to make it dramatic, I could say it's the most difficult test that you've ever encountered in your life so far. Mrs. Shum, so I was telling them.
Yes,
so they need to scope and locate and identify.
Actually, this is how I tell my students. In essence, the summary writing task is a culmination of all the things they learn in primary school. Vocabulary, grammar, synthesis, and transformation all put together. And they need to be so precise. The other thing I put in the chat is also bracketing. Stephen, how many % of your students actually, without you reminding, will draw brackets for all parts, all questions? 50%?
Less than that.
Less than that, right? So this is the thing. You all know that bracketing helps you locate things better. So do it, okay? Don't just stare and write. The other misconception some of them have is that they just need to summarize everything in the designated paragraphs. That's also not true. So please focus well, identify the areas, transform only what you need to transform. The other thing is that I have a lot of students, they want to use difficult words to replace the current words. I think there's a danger to that because they may end up distorting what the original point is.
Yeah.
You should actually make simpler, not harder.
That's right. Exactly. So Mrs. Shum, between Mrs. Shum and myself, we have something like half a century of teaching experience. So we have seen and marked many different types of summary pieces. Okay, so what we are telling you is from our experiences, from what we have observed based on the mistakes which students make, as well as what we have observed from the wonderful summaries which a few of our students have written. And then when we read those, we go, wow, I can't improve this. It's 15 upon 15. Once in a long while, we get that and we feel very happy. And then for those students, it's a question of helping them to figure out why is it that once in a while they only manage to get 14, and then we work on those parts. Okay. So for everybody else, we start from scratch. So scope, locate, identify, merge similar points, okay, and then transform. Okay, so transform meaning to say it in your own words. These are the final few marks. So transformation is something which it's not actually new to you. You learned this when you were in primary 4. Synthesis and transformation. In primary 4, you learn this. And what happens is that when you reach secondary school, there's no S&T test. So you think, hey, I can throw it all away. But you mustn't throw it all away. The sentence structures which you learn in primary 4 and primary 5 and primary 6, which you work so hard on for synthesis and transformation, those are the things which you must now apply for essay writing, for situational writing, and for summary writing. And I'll show you some specific techniques. Okay. So something like this. So where they say summarize the reasons. Okay. So you will go reasons. What are you looking for? Reasons. And then it's young Singaporeans adopt pets during university. Okay, so reasons why they adopt pets during university. So it's very specific. And then the problems. So there are 2 sections. So I see that there are 2 sections that I need to do. So if I look at this passage here, this is a test passage. So what do I include and what should I not include? They adopt pets during their university years. So what you don't want to do is to just copy. I have students who just copy the sentence. They think that it sounds nice and they copy it, but they don't realize they're actually losing their bullets. So you only have 80 bullets, 80 words. So you have 80 bullets to score your 15 upon 15. If you copy everything blindly, it's correct. There's nothing grammatically wrong. But now you have just wasted 8 bullets. You went bang, 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 shooting at the air. No credit to you. No point. Don't do it. Do you understand? Don't say things which sound nice but which don't answer the question, because it doesn't give you any marks. It's not essay writing. So that's the difference between this and essay writing, isn't it? So don't say things which don't answer the question. Don't do that. Some started when they were in primary school. So this is the one which is totally irrelevant. You shouldn't include this, right? Because this is during university. So yes, they are young when they're in primary school, but this is not. So don't include this. So do you understand what I mean when I say that you actually need to hold on to the question? You need to re-look at the question a few times and then check. So you need to look at the question, check the paper, look at the question, check the paper, look at the question, check the paper. And this needs to be done. It's a very active process. Okay. And then you go around selecting the ideas. Okay, so I have a section here called self-revision. So the self-revision sections are for you later on. 1 month before your exam, when you're doing your revision, you look through this, and then you can use this worksheet to help yourself. You understand? Similarly, with the model answer section, this is also for you to check. So after you have answered this question by yourself, you've written out your summary answer by yourself because you're hardworking and conscientious, then you check against this model answer. Okay, so that's how these green boxes, these model answers are used. I won't go through the model answers for the most part because we have quite a lot of things to cover, but they are there for you to refer to so that you don't panic and say, oh, Mr. Sim, I haven't copied yet. Hold on, let me copy. Don't waste time like that, okay? So, so the model answers are there for you to do a self-check after you've done your work. Okay. So let's move on to section B, meaning that we need to learn how to identify the points, because if we don't identify the points, we can't transform anything. So one of the most common errors is that the students don't refer to the passage uh, carefully enough. So I know that you have the pieces of paper on a separate page. So the best students, what they do is that they actually separate the paper. You know what I mean? So you have your paper here, and then it's stapled here, right? And sometimes it's on a 2 pages, right? So what you should do is you should just tear it apart. And some students are very afraid to do that. They're afraid that the teacher will scold them if they tear the paper apart. Don't be afraid. During the actual exam, you will have a question booklet and you will have an answer booklet. Do you understand? During actual exam. And so you are meant to look at the question and attempt to answer it side by side. So tear it apart. Go ahead and tear this. And then later on, towards the end of the lesson, when it's time to hand it up, then you just staple it and hand it up. That's all. Okay, so essential piece of equipment for all students, make sure you get a stapler. And then the other thing I want to tell you to do is that when you buy a stapler, buy 3 boxes of staples, okay? You don't need to carry 3 boxes if you just need to carry one, but the worst thing to do is to have a stapler without staples. So these are the things that enable you to have the confidence to tear the paper, and after that you can staple it back. Because if you don't have a stapler, then you're worried. And when you're worried, then you don't flip. And when you don't flip the paper, then you end up being lost. So don't be lost. Make things easy for yourself. Make things convenient for yourself. You understand? Because thinking already requires a lot of hard work. So you want to make things easy for yourself. These mechanical processes, you need to do it for yourself. So always work with the passage open in front of you. Okay, so they can do it side by side. And so if you look at this example, this got nothing to do with the passages. Those passages I gave to you are just for examples. Now, if you look at this, I want you to identify, okay? So the question is summarize the benefits of community gardening and the difficulties which the gardeners face. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Which of these are valid points and which of these are not? Can you tick on your piece of paper? So you have your handouts with you, right? Okay, so you tick, and then afterwards I'll show you the answers. But you tick. This should take you 1 minute. I'll be back in 1 minute. Uh-huh. Okay. Check your answers. Do you have these same ideas? So as you went through that list and you were trying to decide which of it is relevant or not, you must have found yourself asking yourself, what's the question? What's the question? Because if you don't have the question, you don't know whether or not it's a point. It's only with reference to the question that you can decide. Otherwise, it's just an idea, and they're all ideas, isn't it? Mrs. Shum, do you raise your hand?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
This is the problem. They forget that this is a summary, and I have students who actually have an opening line like a hook. You don't need to do that. Just get straight to summarizing point 1 and 2 or point 1 and 3. You know how they like to complete the sentence without actually making use of the word limit. So don't do that. Get straight into stringing up 1 to 2 points. If not, you end up having to waste words opening another sentence to start your summary proper. So
Yeah.
A is obviously out of the question because it does not make any relevance at all.
Yeah. So, but I can also understand why sometimes they write this kind of general statements is because they find it difficult to string their first idea with the given words. So rather than just ignore the starting phrase, they just try to end it. In which case, our advice would be to end it simply. Just use one or two words. Like community gardens have benefits, full stop like that, So, so instead of have become increasingly popular in cities around the world, including Singapore, just say community gardens have benefits, full stop, and then you start your own idea. Okay, so that's not terrible. What's really terrible is if you just ignore the first part and leave it hanging. You'll be penalized for that. Okay, but you need to look at the question and answer the question. So B and D and F and H. Okay, so no problem. So benefits and then the difficulties. So the benefits and the difficulties. If you have this, then the points are relevant. So if you have identified the points, you will get the content marks. For sure, you get the content marks. There's no reason why you can't get the content marks if you have the points. Now that you have B, D, F, and H, can you write a shorter version? Okay, so maybe just write for this. Can you give me a shorter version of this? And then you can also type into the webinar chat and let me see what your version is. Just write it out first. So this is the lifted version. So what's the shorter version? Can you type into the chat? Participants often report lower stress levels and improved mood after spending time working in the garden. So what's the shorter version? Can you give me a shorter version which answers the question? Here I have
Someone
Lemuel who
said
says, yeah.
active gardeners are more relaxed and happy.
Active gardeners are more relaxed and happy.
How
Okay,
about
relaxed is
less stressed? Lower stress levels doesn't mean you have gone all relaxed. It's just reduced, but you're still feeling stressed. So this is where he borders on the gray area of changing the point.
yeah. I'm right now. I think that if he's saying that it is uh more relaxed, lower stress level, I think that it's okay.
Okay, huh?
It's not that they're totally unstressed. I think this is okay. Improved mood becomes happy. Yeah, I would accept this. I think this is okay. But the thing which I was a bit worried about was active gardeners. Why must he be an active gardener? Is it possible to be a passive gardener.
Those who do gardening, is that right? Those who indulge
Yeah,
in
so
gardening.
actually it's gardeners.
Yes.
It's gardeners, right? So you don't have active gardeners, but gardeners. Okay. Valerie says, let me see. What did Valerie say? Valerie says, visitors of the garden are more relaxed. Visitors of the garden. But if you look at the passage, right, the passage, it says community gardens.
Gardening.
Community gardens
Yes.
meaning it's like
They're
the
not
one in the
visitors.
HDB. Yeah, it's not
Yes.
visitors. It's the one in the HDB flat in between where you can
There
be
are
a
patches
resident.
of
Yeah.
there are
And you
patches
all
of
come
land.
together
Yeah.
and you grow carrots or you grow lettuce or you grow flowers. It's up to you. So that's a community garden. So you're not visiting gardens by the bay. You're actually the gardener. So if you say visitors of the garden are more relaxed, right? Even though you have the word relaxed here, what happens is that you actually get 0 marks for content. Not 0.8 lah, but but 0 marks for content because it's not true. This is not what the passage is saying. So you get no marks at all, which is frightening, right? Which means that you need to be very precise. You must say exactly what you mean or what the passage means. Candidates. Wow. Okay, this one. Candidates. What candidates? Are these exam candidates? These are not exam candidates. So if you say candidates, these are participants of
maybe
what?
she meant participants.
But it's
People who
participants.
participate in gardening.
So this is a vocab question. So it
Yes.
becomes a vocabulary problem. Candidates are people who are sitting for an exam. But this is not candidates. These are gardeners. So if you put candidates again, it is 0. Cannot use the word candidates. Your vocab is very important. That's what I said just now, right? Then some of you are suddenly going, oh yes, vocab is very important. Okay. Okay, I have a couple of students who wrote something like this. Very good. Tonight, all of you are taking part. Good. You said participants become more calm. Good, but, and this is where you lose marks because this is where the examiner says, why is it that you say more calm and you don't know, correct, you don't know the other form of it, which is calmer. Why do you say more calm? So this is where you lose marks for your language and style. The idea is correct, but you have now lost some marks. Okay. So that's where your vocab and your grammar comes in. So just a simple sentence like this, we can already see all the different types of errors popping up, right? Okay. I have. Okay, so so far so good. Or so far so bad. Okay, so far so good. So far so good. Or so far so bad. Okay, so we have, what do we have? We had, so if you're typing something, can you type into the web chat instead of Q&A so that I don't have to see? So type into the web chat, okay? So gardening reduces stress. So I have this, gardening reduces stress. And then I also have improve mood. And I need to decide, is it a separate idea or is it the same idea? It seems as if it's actually a separate idea. Reducing stress is actually different from improving mood. So in N,
enhances one's mood.
Yeah.
Yes, improves mood.
So right now we are just concentrating on lifting. We can do the paraphrasing part later, but just make sure that you live accurately and don't change gardeners to candidates. That's where when you don't live, you lose marks. That's why I'm telling you, you need to live more. Because if you don't live more and you change the word, you lose marks for content. Do you understand? So you have this opportunity to live more, and then in the background, you are furiously running running as fast as you can, trying to learn as many new words as you can. In between, you cope with it by lifting until your vocab catches up. And once your vocab catches up and you are very good at vocab, then we talk about the next stage. But
So in
right now,
fact, your first
live.
point can be actually gardening lowers stress.
Yes.
Lower stress. If you really
Yes.
want to live, but to show the examiner that you know how to transform one kind of verb to another, or from adjective to verb, you can do that. Lowers stress.
I'll give you one more example of how to lose marks. Okay, you lose marks if you say this. People, but it's not people because this is too general. We're talking about participants. Participants in what? Participants in community gardening. So if you change that to people, again, this is 0 marks. You cannot have people, you cannot have, what was the other word? Okay, I've forgotten already, but whatever it was.
In fact, someone in the chat put,
yeah,
quite interesting, they experience lower cortisol levels.
They experience lower cortisol level. Okay, the original says report lower stress levels. Now, let me copy that. Let me copy that. Okay, so this one we know is a problem. And then, now this sounds very impressive. Correct? I have the gardener's part, which is correct. I have experience part, which I
Lower,
put a
which is
question
correct.
mark. Now, lower cortisol level. Now, look at what the actual thing says. It says they often report. Now, what does often report mean? Often report means they say or they write when they are asked, when they answer a questionnaire, when they are asked in a survey, they report. Now, experience lower cortisol level. Now, that has to do with taking a blood sample. So it means
It's a
I have a
medical thing,
syringe
yes.
and then I take a blood sample after you do gardening, and then I check and measure how many milligrams of cortisol are there in your blood per 100 ml or something like that, right? Now, do we have evidence from the text that a blood sample was taken in order to measure cortisol levels? The answer is no. So this kind of answer is wrong and very dangerous. Don't do this. Do not do this. You get 0 marks for content if you do this. Do you understand? Because it's not accurate. They experience lower cortisol levels versus they report lower stress levels. It's not the same thing. What has happened is a distortion. Do you remember the basic rules of synthesis and transformation from primary school?
Do not
Don't
change the
change,
meaning.
don't change the meaning. Don't change the meaning. Don't add in impressive words because this is not creative writing. This is summary writing. Summary writing is about reducing word count. Repeat after me. Summary is about reducing word count. Don't end up saying summary is about paraphrasing. It's not. Summary is not about paraphrasing. Don't change to cortisol levels. Don't change to all the other things which are not there. It's not there in the text. You change it, you lose the marks because it's inaccurate. Do you understand? Summary is about reducing word count. Repeat after me.
Yes, it's a pity. We can tell that they have strong language abilities, but ultimately you will lose marks. And it also will pull the language marks down because it shows that you are unable to translate or to shorten effectively.
Yeah. So part of your skill in language is your ability to decide what not to say. It's not just about saying impressive things. It's about deciding what's the best way to say something so that it's accurate. Okay. So just this one exercise, we managed to discover a number of things which Mrs. Sham and myself, we have experienced many times before. That's why when we see it, we go, oh, there it goes, and it's popping up. Okay, so shall we move on to the next one? Okay, so anyway, if I repeat if I repeat, you end up with the same errors. Do you understand? It's the same errors that pop up where your vocab is not accurate, where you use the wrong word. So what you want to do is you want to lift. Okay, you want to lift as much as possible. Okay, and then you say, but I want to know whether I'm right or not, or you want to try. And then you try yourself. The model answer is here. Okay, so don't look at the model answer, but you can. And those of you just watching on video, unfortunately, you didn't sign up and you didn't get the handout. Well, okay, like that. Okay, so you can pause the video and take a look at it. So if you sign up, then you get your free PDF handout. Then you can print it out and can refer to it during a revision. It's much more useful. Okay, so then this trap that many students fall into is this idea of generalizing. If you generalize until it's no longer specific, then it's probably not worth any marks. So for example, if the passage says silver medalists were more ambitious in their post-sport careers, finding better paid jobs. If that was a passage, and then if you ended up saying seeking constant improvements in life, so that's not worth any marks. It's too general. Or if you say for a muscle to grow, it must first be traumatized and not self-reflection, no marks for that. Or some who grow up with all material needs met sometimes lack drive and direction as adults. So if you say improve and get results, that's also a distortion. You also don't get marks. Okay? Because what they are saying is the children, some children with the easy childhood, they lack drive, so they lack motivation. So it's not improve and get results. It's not about paraphrasing. It's not about giving the general idea. And this is what we see many students doing. And even in some of your answers that you've given so far, I know that you tried, okay, but it's the lack of precise vocabulary which let you down, right? Because most of your idea was correct, right? 99% of your idea was correct, but you just slipped up once. You just used the wrong word once, and then the whole sentence doesn't get any credit. And that's what you need to look out for. That's what we mean when we say that you need to be very precise in your use of your vocabulary. Okay. So you need to ask yourself whether or not whatever you write is too vague. You need to ask yourself whether it is accurate. So when I look at your sentence, I say, hey, this sentence doesn't get any marks. Why? And so if I can do that, then you should be able to do that too. So you need to be able to take a step back, look at the sentence which you wrote, and then ask yourself, does this answer the question? Why can't I use participants? Why can't I say this? Why can't I say visitors? Why can't I say cortisol level? Why can't I just say people? You see? So you need to have the ability to ask yourself, you need to take a step back and examine your own writing. So summary is not easy. Summary is not just about putting down the words on paper. It's about having the ability to look at what you wrote and being willing to change it. And it's very painful, isn't it? You say, but it took me so much effort to write this, and now I have to change it. But that is actually what good writers do. Good writers do not produce model compositions like that. It's not an instant thing. A good piece of writing needs to be looked at and edited and changed. And sometimes you need to leave out entire paragraphs. Sometimes you need to cut out a sentence which you think sounds nice. Because what is really important is your ability to edit yourself, your ability to check yourself. You don't need other people to check you. If you wait for other people to check you, that's very low level. Eventually, as an adult, you want to be able to produce work for your boss. You want to be able to write articles at the university, which don't require anybody else to do the checking or the marking. Whatever you produce has to be 99.99% correct. That's the standard of thinking and of writing which is expected from you if you want to be a successful writer. And that's the kind of degree of excellence which you need to aim for. I'm not saying that everybody will get there, but at least aim for it. Okay, at least develop this ability to check yourself, to check your writing. Look at section C. Assuming that you have managed to get the correct points, okay? Then now we can talk about transformations. Now we can talk about paraphrasing. Now we can talk about changing the words. Because if you change the words and the ideas are wrong, it's all wasted effort. But assuming that you get it correct, okay, so now we want to do the 4 transformations. Slim T, so the T stands for the transformations. So transformations, to transform is to change. So what do you want to do? So the first method of changing is to do a word swap. So change one word for another word. And for summary writing, simpler is always better. So don't change stress levels to lower cortisol levels. Don't do that. Okay, simpler is always better. Okay, so the government has implemented strict regulations. And I want to thank you for being brave enough to share your ideas, because it actually helps everybody to improve when you help to when you do the actual mistake which many students have done before, but then now you're typing it in, then I say, wow, this is a fantastic example. I can help everybody. Okay, and so you have helped everybody to learn. So don't worry about it. So the government has introduced strict rules. So this is from strict regulations to strict rules. That's all. Okay, so that's the amount of change that you do. Just one simple word at a time. So 1, 2, 3, the model answers on next page, but we won't look at it. Okay, so how about question 1? Just give me your rephrased version of number 1. So if you transform this, what does this sentence look like? Okay. Just number one first. And once you finish, type into the webinar chat. And I'll let you know whether you're correct or wrong. No, the entire sentence, please. Okay, I have the first answer, so take a look. The construction of the new expressway has been temporarily stopped due to insufficient money. Yeah, that's right. No problem with this. The building only has okay. I have a wrong answer. I'm going to show you the wrong answer. Okay, so you compare the correct answer with this answer. And when I mark, I treat it as if it's the actual thing. So this needs to be a capital T. You need to have a full stop here. Do you see the capital T and the full stop here? So you must make it a habit to write in the proper way. It's very important. Okay, it must be automatic. So much so that if you start a sentence with a lowercase and if you end a sentence without a full stop, it must feel very awkward. It must feel as if it's wrong. You cannot do such a thing. The building of the new highway has been indeterminately stopped. No, you cannot say this. This is wrong. This, by not enough budget, this is also wrong. So these are vocab problems. So this gets 0 marks. Okay. So this is the correct version. And this is the wrong version. So you can see what happens if you don't have good vocab and you attempt to change. What happens is that the resulting sentence does not make sense. It's not, it just doesn't make sense. Stop by not enough, but you cannot say it like that. So remember the running figure, you really need to build up your vocab. If you don't build up your vocab, then you need to lift as much as possible, then you get the mark. So this one, you get a content mark and you get the language mark. This one, you get content mark 0, language mark 0. We try question number 2. Okay, you do number 2. Youths who participate in competitive sports demonstrate greater resilience when confronted with school-related problems? I can accept that. I can accept that. Okay. Okay, I have a few variations of this which I want to show you. So there's this version here. First verb. When confronted with studying problems. Okay. It's not when confronted with studying problems. Cannot. When facing I have another version. When facing problems in academics. Cannot. When facing problems in academics. Cannot. When faced with bad grades, so you find that the grammar is letting you down. When faced with bad grades, academic setbacks are bad grades. Possible. Content, correct. Language, no good. How about this one? When confronted with study challenges, cannot. Content zero, language zero. When confronted with, okay, I like this one. When confronted with school-related challenges. Okay, and at this point in time, I've already forgotten what the original was, so I need to look back at the original. With academic setbacks, school-related challenges, I would say yes, content and language. Okay, so you see the pattern here, and the pattern is that if your grammar is letting you down, if your vocab is letting you down, then you're going to lose marks. And sometimes when it lets you down very badly, it's not just the language mark that is lost, but the content mark as well. So something like this, where you say when confronted with study challenges, you don't get marks at all because there's no such thing as study challenges. But when faced with bad grades, I know what are bad grades, and so I know that this is just a present tense, past tense error. So you get the marks for content, you don't get marks for language. So this one you suffer for language, but this is halfway there. This is a total loss. This is possible, and this is possible. And with studying problems, total loss. When facing problems in academics, this is also total loss. So your paraphrasing is very dangerous. Do you understand? Can you see how your paraphrasing causes you to lose marks? We do number 3. Okay. The widespread proliferation of social media platforms has fundamentally altered how young people communicate with their peers. Okay, give me your version of this. And don't panic if we can't finish all 37 pages, okay? Because all the model answers are there for you already, so you refer after you have tried your own version, after you have put in your effort. Okay, we have this. Okay, I have this first version here. And I find that this is very interesting. Okay, if you look at this, the widespread proliferation has become the virality of social media platforms. So you're saying that the social media platforms have gone viral, but that's not accurate. It's widespread use, not virality. So this word here is wrong. It's the wrong word. Has changed how young people send messages with their peers. Communicate is not send messages. Communicate could be talking face to face. So this is too narrow. So this is how you lose marks for content, and this is how you lose marks for language. The virality of social media platforms, because that's not what it's saying. That's not it at all. This is a totally different thing that is being said. There's a distortion here. Okay. How about this version? The common use, the widespread proliferation, the common use. Common is widespread. Okay. Social media platforms has changed the foundation. Change the foundation. Fundamentally altered. Change the foundation? No. How young people converse with their peers. Converse is only talk, but communicate is more than talk. So this is also wrong. The major influence, widespread proliferation, major influence. No, it's not. Of social media platform. Oh, grammatical error. Has changed how young people interact with their peers, communicate and interact. Interact involves communication, but interaction can also be, for example, playing basketball, going cycling with. So interaction is too general. This is also wrong. The rapid spread, widespread and rapid spread. Rapid is speed. Widespread is not speed. Widespread just means extensive. affects many people. So this is wrong. It is not rapid. Of social media platforms has completely changed. Oh, good. Fundamentally altered to completely change. Good. How young people talk with their peers. Talk only. Grammatically, it's okay. And in terms of language and meaning, I would say that it's a 95% fit, but there's something which is missing because what about writing? So it's not just talk. So there's something that is also slightly wrong with this because communicate is not just talk. Communicate could be writing. So content, maybe, but once you have rapid spread, no, not true. Language, not true. Wrong. So far, I don't have a single correct version. The widespread proliferation. Okay. So some of you copied and you say, oh, because widespread is rapid, but it's not. So that is a trap. Widespread is not rapid. Widespread is the extensive proliferation, spread, or not spread, because in this case, it's actually usage. The extensive usage of social media platforms has fundamentally, completely changed how young people, and you know what I will do? I will just leave this here. Do you know why? Because the secret to scoring 8 upon 8 is to lift more. Don't change everything. Don't feel as if you need to change everything. Some things just cannot be changed. When you force the change and you end up with something that is distorted, you get 0 marks. If you don't change it and if you lift it, you get the mark for content. So lift more. So the extensive usage of social media platforms has completely changed how young people communicate with their peers. So I leave this here, it's accurate. If I use the word talk, oh, that's a trap. It's wrong. You have been trapped. You understand? So lift more. Don't immediately say, I must change in order to score more marks. It's not true. When you change it and you don't have the correct word, you actually lose marks for both content as well as for language. Okay? So we look at the next section. So this is a trap. This is a trap for the people who copied. Look at this. Word type change. So you can do a second type of transformation from verb to noun, or from a noun to a verb, from an adjective to a noun, from a phrase to a word. So they decided to ban becomes their decision to ban. From an improvement to become improved. From were creative to showed creativity. From in a careful manner to carefully. So this is the word type change. This was what you learned in primary school, and this is what you need to demonstrate your ability to do if you want to score the final few marks. Okay, So now, your chance again. Number one, doesn't it count as lifting is the root word is the same? But that's what I'm telling you. Lift more because there's nothing that says that for summary you're penalized. Do you understand? Because right now what we are seeing for many of the answers from your peers, from your on this webinar is that many of your peers use the wrong words when they paraphrase, and so they are losing marks for vocabulary as well as content, meaning they're not getting any credit at all. So if you lift, you don't lose marks because it's accurate, it's not wrong. So if you just say communicate, you just leave it as that, you don't lose marks. What's wrong with not losing marks? There's nothing wrong with not losing marks. Do you understand? Okay, so I have a few answers here. Uh, the school has decided to prohibit students from using mobile phones during lessons. Okay, so correct, but no change. Has decided to prohibit students from using mobile phones during lessons. No change. You get the content marks, but you don't get any marks for language. I mean, you get marks because it's correct, but you're not going to get the final few marks. Okay? I show you the one which is wrong. If you do it this way, it's wrong. If you said something like this, during lessons, the school decided to. But it's not true that during lessons, the school decided to. Because the school, during lessons, school decided to. Okay, that's one thing. This thing which doesn't really, it's not really accurate. It's not that the school decided to do it during the lessons. They made up their minds during the lesson. They didn't. They made up their minds during a meeting. They didn't make up their mind to do this while they were conducting lessons. Do you understand? They made this decision at a meeting between the HODs and the principal. Okay. So they didn't make the decision during the lesson. So this construction is wrong. Conduct a prohibition cannot. Cannot. There is no such phrase in English. Cannot. This loses marks. What about this version? The school has decided to forbid students. The school has decided to forbid students from using mobile phones during lessons. Okay, this is correct, but the technique that you have used here is transformation one, which is word substitution. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with this, but it's a different technique. The technique which we are actually looking for would be this version here. The school's prohibition of. So prohibit change to prohibition. That's what we are looking for. or generous change to generosity, or reduction change to reduce. So this is the one which many students struggle with because they don't have that table, they didn't memorize that table changing in word forms. We provided it to you during primary 6. If you were our student, you will have received a table to change the word forms. So this is something which you need to know. If you don't know this, then you can't do this automatically. You end up using a different word. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, it's except that if you do it in this way, it gives you more flexibility when it comes to your sentence structures. Do you understand? So this is one way in which you can restructure your sentences. Okay, we move on to transformation 3, because in reality, you use all transformations, and there are quite a number of other transformations which I'm not mentioning here. We're just dealing with 4 basic transformations, and you can use them, you can combine them. And when you combine them, then you find that things will change, and some words will be lifted, some words will not be lifted, and then some sentence structures will be changed. For example, this one which we have here, it starts with because the weather was bad, the event was cancelled. Due to bad weather, the event was cancelled. So changing from because to due to, or from due to because. Changing, getting rid of the who or the which sentences, and then the extra details in between the 2 commas or in brackets. Okay. So instead of because many commuters complain, so we can change it to due to complaints. Like that. Instead of because many still commuters complain, we just say due to complaints, 3, just like that. You understand? So this is, and again, a particular way in which you will transform your sentences. But these techniques, which I show you, like I said, these are the advanced techniques. They are advanced if you're not familiar with them. But if you consistently did well in synthesis and transformation in primary school, to you, this is second nature. It's not a big deal. Then make use of these types of techniques of transformations. Okay. Transformation 4 is the one which will help you to avoid the problem with listing examples. A lot of times, the passages which you get will show you numerous examples. And the reason why the passage gives you several examples is because they're trying to get you to understand the concept. So they show you a concept of a bird, or they tell you, oh, this bird. So for example, flamingos, corvids, sparrows, pigeons, etc., eagles, vultures, right? And then you want to compress all of this. You compress all of this to just one thing. So you just compress to one thing, so it becomes various sports teams instead of all the different types of sports groups. You just compress. So this transformation is easy. So this transformation is called list merging or compression. So you just have one word to categorize all the different examples. So all the different types of examples, you categorize using just one word. You just call it A, like that. Okay, so this is the way. Okay. So the school canteen sells chicken rice, laksa, nasi lemak, mee goreng, fishball noodles during recess. Okay, so if you compress it, then you get it. So not very difficult to do. The examples and the answers are here. You can refer to them. Okay. So what is it that you must avoid? The kind of grammatical errors that you must avoid. So you must make sure that your verb form is the same. So don't do this. Don't go by controlling one's emotions and use them. So you cannot do that. By controlling, and then it must be using. So your A and your B must be the same. Okay, so many students lose marks because they don't see that they need to maintain that parallel structure. That's number one. Number two, they lose marks when they go, we can improve through once. Very common error. If you do this, again, you lose the mark. This is called pronoun consistency. Consistency means must be the same. Pronoun, we, him, they must be the same. We can improve through our. You can also cannot say we can improve through my hard work. No, so it must be the same. The third kind of grammatical error, subject-verb agreement. Improvements which serves, improvements which serve, right? Wrong preposition, seek for constant improvements, seek constant improvements. There's no seek for. Wrong word choice, a starving desire to succeed, a burning desire. So you cannot use this wrong word here. It doesn't, it's not used that way in the English language. Okay. So those are the types of grammatical errors which will be penalized. They are very obvious. Okay, so these are things which you need to work on. So like I said, the summary exercise is very difficult because you need to be good at grammar, you need to be good at vocab, you need to be good at reading, you need to be good at writing. So all of these elements are being tested, which means that you need to work on them. You need to improve. You do not improve your summary by doing more summaries. You improve your summary writing by building your vocab. You improve your summary writing by reading essays, model essays, so that you see how the sentence structures are used. You improve your summary by working on your preposition tables, by reading through word collocation tables, by looking at your primary school notes on synthesis and transformation. You need to put it all together. Section E, spot the mistake. Okay, so section E. So sometimes I have students who do this. This is one example, but I have students who end up writing things like this. So if the passage says, some who grow up with all their material needs met sometimes lack drive and direction as adults. Then I have students who write, one will surely succeed after a setback when one lacks resources. But this is not true, because what has actually happened is that the student has said the exact opposite. This exact opposite of what the passage says. So this is wrong. This is a distortion. So the meaning has changed completely. So you cannot do that. Okay. The second type of error I've seen students doing is that they say something like seeking constant improvements in life. But this is too general. This is too general. Seeking constant. So who? Who is seeking? So it's actually silver medalists who actually became more ambitious, right, in their careers, and then you don't need post-sports and you don't need finding better paid jobs. You can just say in their careers. So lifting by just canceling out certain words will get you the mark. If you paraphrase until it is too general, you get 0 marks. So you lift and then you cancel out certain details. So lifting gets you marks. So repeat after me. Summary is about reducing word count. Summary is about reducing word count. Okay? So most of what you should be doing is you just should be canceling out details, canceling out the words in between. So don't invent content. So don't say things like setbacks provide opportunities for self-reflection, but there is nothing here which says self-reflection. Some people can turn the hurt and anger generated by a setback into a fierce will to succeed. And how they do that is through self-reflection, but that's not in the passage at all. That is what your school taught you. Your school sent you for some lesson and say, okay, mindfulness training, self-reflection, write down in a journal, etc. But you cannot bring that extra information into the exam. Your answer must be based strictly on the text that is given to you. You cannot bring in your general knowledge. No credit. It's a distortion because that's not in the actual text. This is not creative writing. Summary writing is about reducing word count. Summary writing is not about writing things that are true or it's not that at all. It's actually about reducing word count. Okay. And what happens also is sometimes I have students, and this is not just the one example, this is just one example of many examples that I've seen where they stuff many different ideas with spelling errors included into a sentence, and then that sentence doesn't make sense anymore. It also extends one's lifespan and ability to learn how to cope with such situations through controlling one's emotions and use them as motivations. And I said, what's going on? I don't understand this sentence. So you have to read through your sentence. So read what you write. This is a very interesting thing. Because when I ask students, and did you read what you write? And most of the time they give me a sheepish grin. They say, no, I didn't read. They just write. They just write and then they hand in and then they expect to get marks. But they don't read what they write. If you don't read what you write, then how can you edit it? Say, oh, I don't edit it. I just hand it in. And I think I can also understand, I empathize with you because I know that writing is hard work. Writing is really difficult. There's a lot of thinking and trying to get the right words and processing the ideas. It's really difficult. But you need to read through that sentence. And then when you read through your sentence and you say that I don't think this sentence makes sense, then don't hand it in. Because if you hand it in, it's not going to get any marks at all. Okay, so one simple secret is actually to break it up. So for example, I could say it also extends one's lifespan and ability to learn how to cope with such situations. Okay, so I think there's a mark here. So I put a full stop here. Okay, once I put a full stop, that means that this is worth 1 mark. And is the grammar correct? Yeah, the grammar is correct. Okay, so content, I already get 1 mark. Language, I also get some credit for it. So you put a full stop there. Don't write a long, complicated sentence. Because if I just look at this one long, complicated sentence, I won't give it any marks at all because this sentence doesn't make sense. But if you break it up into short sentences, it makes sense. So break it up into a short sentence. How about this? Ability to learn how to cope with such situations. I don't know. I don't think I can save this. How about this? How about they learn? So get rid of this ability to learn. Just say they learn, and then don't say how to they learn to cope with. Don't say difficulties. Use your own word. You know the word difficulties, right? Through controlling. What did they say? What did we say about agreement? Their, not our, right? Their emotions. Use them as, what does the them refer to? I don't know. Through controlling their emotion. Okay. So they learn how to cope with difficulties through controlling their emotions. Okay, then if you really wanted to, you could say this can motivate. Full stop. Like that. Okay, so if you break it up into a few short sentences, it's like saving. Some of you play computer games, right? Every time you complete a difficult stage, save the game. Then okay, then you move on to the next stage. Then you save the game. And then if you fail, then you can reload the saved game. This is the same idea. Every time you put a full stop, you save your mark. Then after that, you put another full stop, then you save your mark again. Because if you just write and it becomes too long and complicated and nobody understands what's going on, you just lose marks all the way. Do you understand? So here we have a few passages for you to refer to and then you can try. So for example, some students feel so this thing about school uniforms, and then there's one summary question. So don't use more than 30 words. I know that the actual thing is 80, but you don't need to try 80 words first. You can just try 30 words first. Okay, you try passage one. You can use any technique. You can lift or you can choose not to lift. You can do it the same way that you have always been doing, or you can try some of the new methods which you have been introduced to today. Although I wouldn't say they are new methods, these are things which you already know. You try. So even though we are not covering all the passages today, there are lots of exercises as well as the model answers for you to refer to. Okay, so remember not to use sentences that are too complicated. Remember to lift more. Remember to use simple transformations. You don't need to change every single word. School uniforms limit students' self-expression as students cannot show their personality. Correct. Correct. However, they can also forge a sense of belonging among students and save time. Fantastic. Very good. Well done. That's the way to do it. Okay. That's the way to do it. Okay. We want to do one more. Okay, do the next one. And model answers here if you want. Okay, sleep and teenagers. Okay, last one for tonight. I think we have time for just one more. Sleep and teenagers. Lift more. Just cancel. Cancel, 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 cancel. And then lift whatever remains. And then you'll get marks. Some causes of sleep deprivation are late night studying, excessive screen time, and early school start time.
Starting time. Start times.
So these are things which you can check. And if you don't check, then you lose marks. So that's one of the things that I tell students that, you know, you need to avoid what you call or what we call transfer errors, where you're just transferring the information from the text. So sometimes like they tell you, why did James not eat the hamburger? Then you say, James did not eat the hamburger. So from James, it became James, you know, and from interrupt, or why did he interrupt? And then when you write interrupt, your interrupt is spelled wrongly and you didn't check. Then you lose marks for, so don't lose marks for this kind of transfer error. You need to check. Okay. And of course, some of you might say, oh, it's because I typed wrongly. That's the equivalent of writing wrongly. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Hey, so far so good. Late night studying, excessive screen time, early school start times. Some effects of sleep deprivation are colon. Okay, good use of colon. What do we have? Difficulty to concentrate in comma class. performing worse in tests. Okay, good. So from perform to performing, good. I see a transformation there. And mood swings that affect relationships. Okay, so you cancel out friends and family. Okay, very good. So as far as the ideas are concerned, I think it's very good. Okay, you managed to capture most of it. You did a little bit of transformation. You cancel out the unnecessary details. You reduce the word count. You just need to be more careful when it comes to transfer errors and grammar. Okay. So this was good. Not great, but good. Work on it and then it'll become great. Okay. I think I have time for maybe one more. Okay. Let's see. This. Okay. What does this student say? Excessive screen time and Eloy. Okay, I think early school start times causes. I have A and B, right? So it should be cause. So this subject verb agreement. Sleep deprivation. And now I have one missing idea. One idea has gone missing. Do you know which idea went missing? Late night studying. So I only have A here. I have B here. Because excessive screen time and scrolling through social media, you compress it, it's the same thing. Very good. But you lost out the part about late night studying because that's a totally separate idea which should have been included. So this was the missing mark. Okay. Uh, capital T. This causes them to be unable to concentrate in class. And experience mood swings. Okay, but again, I have a missing idea because I have concentrate in class, which is C, experiencing mood swings, which is D. I don't need affect their relationships. You know what is missing? Is this section here. This is missing. Perform worse in tests. This thing is missing. So what's happened is that you have lost 2 content marks. Okay. So be accurate, do the slim T, and this approach where you cut out details and you just live as much as possible, you're on the right track. But you need to check. I know you're working under time pressure, but that's what the exam has you for. That's why there's a time limit. It's not the open exam, not open-ended exam. And you say that, okay, take as long as you want for this English language paper. Some of you take 3 hours, some of you take 5 hours. They don't do that. It's standardized time. So the more you practice, the faster it becomes because of habit. Once you build up the habit of checking and making sure that nothing gets dropped out, then you will improve and your scores will become better. Okay, so check. So one of the things that you can do is I've given you a lot of practice passages here. So you check. After you write your own version, then you just check against the model and be very careful in your checking and say, oh, I lost out this idea, I lost out that idea. Okay, so do more practice and then you improve. So remember, lift as much as possible, but for the final few marks, you will need to transform. But when you transform, you must transform accurately. Vocabulary, grammar, don't distort the ideas. Don't add in things which are not there. Okay. So towards the end of your handout, I provided a couple of summaries for you. So some work examples of how the four transformations look like. Okay, look at these. And then also the steps that you go through. If you are thinking about whether or not your marks are high enough for the language or style. So this is what the examiner looks at. This is how the examiner thinks about your words, your structures. So there's nothing here which says that if you lift, you get penalized heavily. You don't. You most of the time, if you lift and if you don't do much changing, if you just mostly lift, you will end up somewhere here. Okay, because frequent and usually appropriate, which means correct use of your own words. Oh, so this is no longer lifting, isn't it? Because between this is some use of own words, which means mostly lifted, right? But if I have frequent and usually correct use of own words, which means that it's not lifted so much, right? There might be still some lifting, but not so much. Then you get to 5 and 6. So most of the time, I think for students, what you are getting is you are getting something like 1 and 2 for language, and then you are getting something like 2 upon 8 for content, which ends up with something like 4 upon 15 total. So to avoid it, you need to lift more until you get 8 upon 8 consistently for content plus 3 to 4 marks. And then you get something like 12 upon 15. Once you do this consistently, then we think about transforming and changing certain words. Okay, so that's the approach which you need to take. So there are different ways to do the summary, and it's not about changing everything, neither is it about copying everything. What you need to do is you need to have the correct approach. You need to have the correct approach. It depends on where you are at this moment in time and how you want to go about improving yourself. So summary is about reducing word count. And then if you are able to transform certain words, you can get a full mark. But if you don't have that ability when it comes to vocabulary and grammar, you need to work on it. You need to work on your vocabulary, you need to work on your grammar. And in the meantime, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you just live. And then you practice until you can do it confidently and accurately. Okay, that's all that we have for you tonight. So we hope to see you for your other webinars. Do come and join us. We'll be running some more webinars. You can watch this on YouTube. Go ahead and share your PDFs with your friends and classmates, and share the links with your friends and classmates and anyone you think will benefit. Okay, thank you very much and goodbye.